Hello and welcome back, everyone. Happy Thursday. Today we're going to be doing a rundown of Dev Diary 115, aka the Graveyard of Empires, which covers some of the narrative content that is going to be featured in patch 1.7, which drops on June, I think it's 24th. I've misplaced the date, but we will be going over this. And so it's mainly going to feature, just kind of quick rundown of who it's going to feature: Afghanistan. Persia is going to be the next one. Then I was a little bit surprised to see it, but it does make sense. Korea is also going to be one we talk about, and there's going to be local flavor for all of these. Now, I think that there's one more. Yeah, the Caucuses. So we're going to be going through these. It's just a bit of local flavor, kind of continuation of the great game. Now, let's get into it. Hello, this is Victoria, and today I will be covering the remainder of the great game-themed narrative content, which is coming in the Sphere of Influence and its accompanying update. Okay, so last week we gave Dear Victoria, because, you know, obviously she was named after the video game, we gave her a pass because she didn't wish us a happy Thursday. But what's this? 2 not happy Thursdays in a row? I don't know if we could keep giving her a pass, but let's just get into it. To avoid confusion, I would like to clarify that none of the narrative content shown in this Dev Diary, nor in the last Dev Diary, is gated by the great game objective. That's good, because I thought it was. I think I thought it was during the last Dev Diary. That's kind of how it read a little bit in some spots, but it's not gated by the Great Game Objective. The Great Game Objective instead provides objective sub-goals which grant points for certain journal entries and score a tracker which interfaces with much of the content for a more focused experience. It is not required to experience this content. So instead it will just, you know, give you more stuff off to the side, which will say, do this. All content within this diary, unless specified otherwise, is available in both sandbox mode or during the course of the objective. So, we answered that. Okay, so first up we have Afghanistan, which, of course, was been broken up into several different countries. Afghanistan in 1836 is far from a unified land. The slow collapse of the Durrani Empire has left it in a state of civil war for decades, with the primary claimants to the throne forming fiefdoms centered in Herat, Kabul, and Kandahar. In addition to this unfortunate situation, the Afghan states find themselves menaced by Persia's expansionist ambitions from the west, the encroaching British East India Company from the east, Russian influence from the north. Man, that sounds like not a fun time. Okay. All Afghanistan states starts with the Afghan Reunification Journal entry active. While the primary contenders for reunifying Afghanistan are Herat, Kandahar, and Kabul, which you can see Herat, Kandahar, Kabul. The minor khanates of Maimana, which I think that's that one, and Kunduz, which is this one, will also have this available, allowing for the formation of Afghanistan under an Uzbek Khan. I wonder if this will affect your primary cultures. I assume once you form Afghanistan, you get the Afghan kind of primary cultures, so it doesn't matter anyways, but this is going to be, some stuff you could do. The journal entry allows for all Afghan contenders to appeal to either Russia or Britain for military and diplomatic support in reunifying Afghanistan. If the relevant great power approves the contender's support, they will be more inclined to support the said contenders in a diplo plays, and the contender will receive military bonuses in exchange for an obligation. So, I think it's pretty neat that so I think that if there's a lot of instances where you can, as a kind of minor power, pit the great powers against each other, in order to give yourself a sense of agency, that this is kind of a play pattern that makes a lot of smaller countries a lot more playable in a way that's interesting and dynamic. Currently, especially for new players, I think it's kind of the case that the game kind of only exists for great powers, or maybe major power plus. If you're more experienced, obviously you can kind of start as whatever you want, but largely, I think that it's cool that there's stuff like this that gives a sense of agency for some of the smaller powers, in this case, for Afghanistan in particular. If you can kind of flip a coin, have one of these guys help you out, and maybe you wait for one of them to rev, and then you use the other one to beat one of the other ones up. I don't know, something like this. But in general, I think that this is probably a pattern that allows for a little bit more play for the smaller countries, like playing Afghanistan. Okay. Once unified, a freshly formed Afghanistan may choose to either pursue additional claims on Pashtun and Tajik homelands at the cost of infamy, or stop its expansion while it's ahead. We see the Afghan unification is one of these. Yet more lands to reconquer. Probably choose that one. Afghanistan's unification content will be available to all players in the free update accompanying the Sphere of Influence. All players in the free update accompanying the release of Sphere of Influence. So some of these, I think some of this content is gated behind Sphere of Influence, having the DLC, but this one will be free, allegedly. Okay. Next we have Persia. Really like the color change. I like the blue a lot. If that's particularly close to the color of an ocean in one of the maps, that's going to be really nice, because you could do a world conquest maybe and just make the entire map one color if it's kind of close to an ocean color. I'm not sure if that's close enough though. It's a little hard to tell. I can't tell if they have a new map either, or if this is I think this is the map from the latest edition, but okay, it might be new. I can't remember. Persia in 1836 is a country swelling with expansionist ambitions. Persia also has some of the very best resources in the game. It's a really fun region to play in, for the reason of you kind of have the only thing you're really lacking is wood. You really don't have a lot of wood. You have wood in several places, but not a lot of it. The newly enthroned Muhammad Shah has consolidated its power and wishes to annex the Principality of Herat, that's over here, as part of grand ambition that would unify Persian-speaking populace of Afghanistan with Persia and extend Persian influence throughout Central Asia. In Sphere of Influence, the expansionist ambitions are represented through the eastern frontier and journal entry. This journal entry provides the tools needed to realize. Is realize spelled with an S? Or Z? Okay. Persia's expansionist interests with buttons for approaching either Russia or Britain, as well as gaining the claims on the remainder of Central Asia under certain conditions. So, we do like this, the approaching of Russia or Britain as a kind of play pattern, which, if you can pit being able to pit the great powers against each other, I think allows for more interesting opportunities for player agency. We can see claim Greater Khorasan, pacify the Turkmens, request British military mission, request Russian military mission, and then you will complete if you own all of these regions, and you've conquered and restored Merv, which is the city. If Persia conquers Herat, Britain will be warned and will have an opportunity to demand that Persia withdraw from the region. I don't know if this is historical, because I don't know the history of the region, but I suppose this makes it so you probably would rather buddy up with Russia. If Britain sends, well, maybe they won't send the demand if you buddy up with Great Britain, so I don't really know. Okay, if Britain sends the demand and Persia backs down, it will represent a major humiliation setback in the expansionist ambitions. If Persia refuses to back down, Britain will be much more hostile towards Persia and represent a major impediment to its future efforts. So here we have the event. Persia occupies Herat, which I assume is what is given to Great Britain, and then here we give Britain demands a withdrawal. I think this art is new. I don't recall seeing it. Pretty cool. But okay, they don't tell us what modifiers we're going to get here. Just, we know that there will be modifiers, I assume, accompanying each of these. While expanding in the north and the east, Persia will encounter massive slave markets of Turkmenistan, or Turkmenia and Uzbekistan, and be faced with either the need to free slaves or allow them to remain in captivity. We do see a little bit of exploitation here. Additionally, Persia will have opportunity to restore the great city of Merv, formerly one of the largest cities in the world before its desolation by Tuli Khan. And so, that will be really cool, as well. I wish that there was like more focus on like cities, as you know, kind of right now it's just like an abstraction of a state, and if you're cities of like culture or splendor or something like this, I mean, obviously you can grow a state really, really, really big or something like this, but that'd be cool in terms of the flavor. And so this is maybe something that there is. It'd be cool if you, when you restore it, that this creates a what is it called? The unique buildings. I forget what they're called. Monuments. That is maybe does something. I don't know, we'll see. If Persia successfully is able to complete this journal entry, it will almost certainly become a major power in its own right, one that will be able to become recognized. So this is something that I probably should have said in the preamble. There's also new mechanics for recognition, which is super exciting, because I think that the former way of doing it was kind of like, it's like, I feel like it should be able to be done diplomatically, or not like militarily. Also, there's the problem that you can cheese it really, really, really easy without having to do anything else as well. And the new methods kind of solves that. Expel both Russia and Britain from Central Asia and force an end to the Great Game. So the Great Game has been won by Persia here. They're looking big, nice, big, and they do have a subject down here. I don't know who that is, but in good shape. And so I think Persia will be probably, one of the premier countries to be playing in this patch for people who don't like playing GPs. I think Persia's really going to be quite a lot of fun. The above content for Persia is available for all owners of the Sphere of Influence expansion pack. So, the Afghanistan stuff was available. If we scroll up, the Afghanistan stuff was available to everyone, right? I think in the thing, Afghanistan's unification content will be available to all players in the free update accompanying the Sphere of Influence. This is going to be available for all people who buy the expansion pack. Okay. Korea, despite being far from Central Asia, you don't say, was not untouched by the Great Game. In the mid to late 19th century, it began feeling the effects of European influence, causing unrest among the intellectual class and the peasantry. The philosophy of Donggak, or Eastern learning, was intended to present a path to establishing democratic and egalitarian society in Korea while simultaneously refusing encroachment by foreign powers. And so we see the Donggak. I'm not familiar with this philosophy at all, but okay. To represent Korea's isolation from the world during this period of the Joseon dynasty, Korea has been given the isolationism law at the game start. So this is a bit new. Currently, they will be There's several isolationist countries that are big. Siam, Japan is being the largest. Siam, Japan, Kokoto, and now Korea will be added to that fold, which I think they present interesting opportunities for like low infamy wars, to like just open them up to trade and this type of thing, but okay. Once this law is replaced by a different trade law, a sufficient degree of turmoil builds up, and the effects of the foreign influence begin to be felt in Korea. A new journal entry will appear. So, when you get rid of isolationism and you get some turmoil, you get some journal entries. The Donggak movement, a journal entry, represents the hybrid religious political peasant movements that occurred in Korea around the 19th century. Whilst big nice, whilst it is active, revolutions involving the rural folk will be greatly strengthened. This is super cool. So it's just going to add a whole bunch of juice to revolutionaries of a particular IG. I think that this is neat, a way of kind of interacting with the thing, but this means you'll have to be scared of the peasants. And the peasants, I think, will want to... their calls for social equality, religious tolerance, and the expulsion of foreign influence. So they're going to try and both make everything egalitarian and re-isolate you, which is kind of an interesting combination that I don't think you see that often. So if we see the Donggak movement is giving plus 15% rural folk pop attraction, plus 25% revolution progression speed, plus 10% radicals from standard of living decreases, which those are, not like cataclysmic modifiers, but they're substantive. Okay, there are two paths to removing the great threat of the peasant rebellion: reducing the amount of radicals in Korea to a manageable level, or completing the demands that the movement offers to the government. I assume that there's a third way, which is, through the peasants, and just procking the rev and then beating it. While the Donggak movement is active, there may be an issue to petition the government demanding that Korea go back into isolation, permit religious tolerance, and reduce the power of the Yangban. So that all together is quite a bit of stuff. And interesting to see that they will be like kind of rallying for more isolationism. Accepting the petition will please the rural folk and decrease the threat of imminent revolution, but failing to meet its demands within the time allotted will make the situation endlessly worse. Okay. I'm not sure what the strategy will be as Korea, but this is a bit of an interesting one for them. Let's see. There's Gyeoju and Shinwan. Followers of the Donggak movement among the rural folk have presented a petition, so this is the petition they were referring to, calling for the tolerance of the Donggak doctrine, the expulsion of foreigners, and the execution of corrupt members of Yangban officials. It do be like that sometimes. Sometimes you get executed. The truth hurts. The government promising to hear the demands of the movement has been temporarily reduced social unrest from the adherents, but turning our back on petitioners will certainly lead to more revolutionary activities. So it completes if you reenact isolationism, you do not have state religion, and the Yangban officials are not powerful and not part of government. Interesting. So this will be kind of in terms of an RP playthrough. Of some kind, it'll be interesting to go get off isolationist, move back to isolationist. If you are kind of doing the full flavor of these events. Normally you're not like back and forth like that, but maybe someone opens your market and then you have to re-isolate. Maybe this is kind of how it plays out in terms of doing something that's RP oriented. If a movement involving the rural folk becomes revolutionary, the journal entry will fail and massively escalate the radicalism of the movement on the progress of the revolution. What would have been a mere civil unrest will transform into a near guaranteed civil war, one that could run the risk of a foreign intervention, which would be disastrous for Korea. And this is something that okay, so they might be scripted to foreignly intervene, but this is something that I think would be an interesting sort of change for the way that the game works, or at least the AI plays. If the AI is pretty aggressive about foreign interventions in your revolutions, if you're unrecognized powers, which is the type of meddling that I think might make sense a lot for like GPs and stuff like this. The people who have expeditionary forces or expeditionary capacity, which are the larger powers, like historically speaking, to just be thumbing a lot of pies in the event of something like this. Okay. If Korea has a civil war whilst the subject of China will be more inclined to come to the defense of its local government, but a modernized Japan may also be inclined to intervene and will be much less predictable in its allegiance. So we see a little bit of a rebellion. I think that... I think there was another one about the great powers. As a bonus, Korea has several events pertaining to the Joseon monarchy added, allowing for the appearance of characters such as Gojong and the Empress Myeongseong. Sorry if I mispronounced any of that, and by sorry if I mispronounced any of that, I say sorry that I mispronounced probably all of that. And so we see Quinine. I always like the historical characters, especially if they're like really good, and like make you want to play into or lean into them. In particular, like the careful trait is really good. If you're playing low infamy, the careful trait is really good, as is the literary trait. And so, like, the scripted starting Emperor of Qing is actually really good because he has the careful trait, so you accumulate less infamy. And so you wouldn't even want to move off of monarchy, even if you could just kind of for free. You would rather just stick with them. And so it'll be exciting to see what these ruler characters, what traits they have and this type of thing. I don't know anything about Korean history, really, so I don't know what traits they might have, so the speculation is beyond me, but you could speculate in the comments if you think that they will have one of the juicy infamy reducing or infamy decay increasing traits, which I think are the best traits, generally speaking. Ambitious is pretty good, too. The ones that reduce the cost of edicts or consumption taxes, I think, are both good. This content for Korea is available for all players who own the Sphere of Influence expansion pack. So Afghanistan free, Korea and Persia are going to be locked. Okay, and now we have the Caucasus. In Sphere of Influence, both Russia's opponents in the Caucasian War, Circassia and the Caucasian Imate, receive journal entries to represent their role in the conflict. In the case of Circassia, this journal entry is completed by expelling the Russians from Kuban and achieving the borders claimed by the Circassian parliament. So we see honor before life. That's rough. Come back with your shield or on it. Rah. Upon either expiration of the truce between Circassia and Russia, or Russia's escalation of the war using its Caucasian War journal entry, Circassia receives an event representing the historical parliament independence in 1861. This event offers the opportunity to either focus on modernizing the military in preparation for the Russian invasion, or appealing to foreign powers in recognition for support. I assume that you kind of just want foreign power help, but okay. Foreign powers with an interest in the Caucasus region. That's really not a lot of foreign powers is the problem. Foreign powers very often do not declare any sort of thing in the Caucasus region, which is why... So something you can do is, wherever you start the diplomatic play, like wherever the war goal is, the initial war goal, that's who can join or who can't join. So one of the things that you do, as like in order to abuse Russia, if Russia has kind of a weird sort of defense matrix, they have a lot of allies or defensive pacts that you don't, or not allies or defensive pacts, but if you're trying to dodge a specific like great power from joining in against Russia, because allies and defense pacts, it doesn't matter the strategic region, what you do is you declare often in the Caucasus specifically, because Russia will not be able to call anyone else in. And so, for example, if you were playing Austria and you wanted to fight Russia, but you want to fight Russia in a place where Prussia doesn't have a strategic region, often the Caucasus is one of the better places to go to. So the foreign powers with an interest in the Caucasus region, it's probably going to be slim pickings. Will receive the option to offer recognition to Circassia upon the conclusion of its war with Russia, as well as becoming more inclined to support it in a defensive war. Will receive the option to offer recognition upon the conclusion. Okay, so you can get recognition really early. But yeah, maybe AI Great Britain really loves placing an interest in the Caucasus now, though, because of the great game. This would maybe make some sense. And so maybe this is just kind of targeted towards Great Britain specifically. Okay. Yeah, if you're playing Egypt, for example, sometimes you don't want to declare a war in Arabia if you're declaring on the Ottomans, and you instead want to declare a war in Anatolia because of who has interests in the regions. But we see the Circassian call. We will have a chance to offer recognition to the state, and relations will improve. And this looks like it's targeting Great Britain. So maybe this is mainly going to be Great Britain with the ability for it to be someone else. Like if you wanted to mess with Russia and you were playing Prussia, you put an interest in the Caucasus or something so that you can thumb their pie. The Caucasian Imate has also received a journal entry covering its struggle for independence. Its attached modifier grants the Imate benefits in terms of morale and defense on states it owns. Okay. Benefits in terms of morale and defense. I wonder if this is a flat modifier. Flat modifiers are real strong and would make taking them really, really difficult. And you don't see too many flat modifiers. I think Tuodros is the only one that comes to mind for me who gets like plus 20 on offense. And he's from Ethiopia. If you play as any one of the Ethiopian countries, you get him, and then you just put him in charge of the army and you just Space Marine people. But okay, you Space Marine people with your peasants, or with the irregulars. Okay. Interesting. Once Circassia's starting leaders have died, the Imate may use this journal entry to dispatch a leader to Circassia, fostering a formal alliance between the states. If the Imate and Circassia, let's see, okay. If the Imate and Circassia reverse the course of their wars and expel Russian influence from the North Caucasus, big nice, the Russian government will no longer have the ability to exert influence within the region. It will be forced to either try to maintain its administration through a storm of radicalism or pull out from the region. I think this part's really cool. Depending on the technologies that Russia has unlocked, the collapse of the Caucasus may take the form of the restoration of some of its traditional kingdoms, the appearance of modern nation states, or the establishment of a unified Transcaucasia. So this is really exciting because, I think that this will be a really fun, hard playthrough as one of these guys. What you get is the Transcaucasia at the end of this, and then what's pictured down here is the first result, which I think is militarize the remaining garrisons and hold at all costs. Okay, I think this is the first one up there. Take the form of the restoration of some of its traditional kingdoms, the appearance of modern nation states, or the establishment of a unified Transcaucasia. This is obviously not a unified Transcaucasia, but we do see Circassia, Caucasian Imate, Abkhazia, Karteki, Armenia, and Shavari, but in theory you can get all of this unified, which would be pretty cool. And it'll be interesting if you can massage that along as a great power trying to weaken Russia. That'd be super cool. I'd be a big fan of if you can influence either this happening or the fully released Transcaucasia. Probably preferable than having a bunch of little states. But hopefully this is kind of a little cornerstone of one of the types of plays or things you can go for, not just playing as it yourself, which of course I think is going to be an interesting run, but also as a means of meddling with Russia. Content for the Caucasian Imit and Circassia will be available to those who own the Sphere of Influence pack. So we see again, it's going to be locked behind the DLC, which is fine, which is good, because some stuff has to be locked behind the DLC, right? They can't put everything in the free pack, but what they should be putting in the free pack, and what they've stated is their intention to put in free packs, is mechanics that are kind of essential to normal gameplay, which I think is what they're doing. And now we have earning recognition, which is perhaps the most interesting thing here, which is that you can now earning recognition is just different now. You can't just bink one war in order to earn it, and you can also earn it without war. The earning recognition journal entry permits an unrecognized power to work towards the status of a recognized nation. The journal entry replaces the currently existing forced recognition war goal, whilst defeating great powers in wars, it still benefits an unrecognized nation immensely. So going to war is still going to be a useful means, but it will not be enough to just bink it. You can't just start out as Qing, land Singapore in the Opium Wars with having recognition be one of the war goals and just instantly become recognized. So recognition being harder, I think, is kind of a good thing, and simultaneously being harder, not requiring war, also being another thing. I think that this is going to be an improved sort of thing. It is not a one and done path towards being regarded as an equal. So we see here it's going to have a progress bar. Various things are going to give it. Let's see. Rank is greater than... will complete if any country rank is greater than or equal to greater power, relations with Great Britain, and I'm guessing whoever you're playing as are equal to 80. Progress bar has reached 200. So you're going to have good relations with at least one of them. And the progress bar has to reach 200. If completed, we will sign a treaty of commerce and navigation with the relevant great power, granting us recognition in the eyes of the world, and you become recognized. Conditions which benefit the cause of recognition include defeating major powers in wars. Interesting, it includes major powers, having a vital statistics such as GDP per capita, standard of living, and literacy and so these will be hard for someone like Qing to put forward, as well as Japan and stuff like this. Enacting voting rights and using the new request embassy diplomatic action on great powers. So cozying up to the great powers diplomatically will help, as well as increasing your economy and liberalizing by enacting voting rights. We see that enforcing a war goal on a major power or above, having a GDP per capita in the top 20, having a standard of living in the top 20, having literacy rate above 40%, which is pretty manageable, having voting rights, and request diplomatic embassy action is active. The request the request embassy diplomatic action is unique to this journal entry and permits the requesting of embassies and great powers. Each great power that is willing to accept will raise their progress by 10%. And so, if we take a look here, there's, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 GPs. So in theory, you could get 70% progress by requesting the embassies. It'll be interesting to see how easy or difficult this is to achieve, but this makes diplomacy a useful aspect in terms of securing recognition. So you could maybe just win a bunch of wars and ignore diplomacy, you can engage in diplomacy and reform a little bit and like this type of stuff, or you could just fully modernize and not do any diplo or wars and get recognized, it looks like. And so there's going to be kind of a multifaceted path towards recognition, which I think is a lot more interesting and dynamic than the current, oh, you just landed Singapore with one boat and so you're recognized. Nothing we could have done to stop you. You're the great power now. Conditions which harm the cause of recognition include having poor vital economic indicators, being defeated in a war, and having certain regressive laws that demonstrate one's nation to be an unreliable business partner. And so having serfdom, traditionalism, outlawed dissent, all bad. You having not abolished slavery, so having slavery also bad. But this is like worded differently because there's 3 different slaving laws. Literacy below 20%, SOL below the top 50, GDP per capita below the top 50, and having a war goal enforced on you. Interestingly enough, you could just eliminate countries to get into the top 50, which is kind of an amusing one. But yeah, so these will all hurt you, and this will make getting recognition as some of kind of like the backward behemoths like Qing much, much harder, which I think it should be, or Japan, and also make... it's interesting. It'll certainly make becoming recognized much easier for smaller powers, because I don't think I saw anything in here which required you being an unrecognized regional power, which is currently a requirement for recognition. You have to be unrecognized regional power before you can deck or use the war goal for recognition. Earning recognition will be available to all players as part of the free update in 1.7, and that is all. Wait, that's it? Where's our Happy Thursday? Terrible. Thank you for reading. What's that? Next week, Max will cover the new art for Sphere of Influence. So we will be receiving arts next week, which will always be big nice. We've seen some of the new art. I don't know if this is new. To be fair, art's not exactly the thing I follow the most closely. I do think this is new, the mountain range one, but it's always nice to see and always nice to kind of appreciate, and so we will be looking into that next week. But for this week, we have kind of looked through all the players in the Great Game that are not the Great Powers and seen some stuff, as well as seen recognition. Really excited about the new recognition. Really think that a lot of these playthroughs look like they're going to be a lot of fun now. In particular, we have been avoiding starting any sort of runs in the region because of... Persia we did somewhat recently, but we haven't wanted to do any sort of Central Asia type shenanigans because we knew that there was going to be some content here, and there will be some content. Really kind of want to try the Caucasus one. The Unified Caucasia, like if we take a look at some of the lands down here, I think overall the Korea one's perhaps the least interesting because it looks like it's mainly negative for you as the player and isn't too much, unless the leaders are really neat. I guess we'll see how neat the leaders are. But making a Transcaucasia, I think will be... I think that this will be a really neat one, although perhaps because I'm Armenian, this is like looking neater than it is. But this seems like a reasonable space in terms of resources. There are a lot of mountain ranges here, so building in there is unpleasant, but I do think... Well, I think it's like north of the Caucasus where the oil appears and south of the Caucasus. I think there's actually not too much oil there, but it'll be interesting if this becomes like kind of a solid playthrough on its own, starting as either Circassia or the Caucasian Imate to force this if you could do it consistently. It'll be like maybe like a kind of Krakow-ish start, but for the Caucasus, where it's like it's kind of rough, but it's playable. There's some stuff going on, and it's interesting. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Do the YouTube algorithm thing. And other than that, have a happy Thursday. Big nice.